Welcome to the Love the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And Brian, we had a brief mini episode the other day, a brief reaction to the Cowboys' 28-16 loss to the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to do a deeper dive now that we've both had a chance to look back at the game and hear some of the rhetoric surrounding the game afterwards. Your biggest takeaway, your most important thought after watching the tape of what was a brutal game against the Arizona Cardinals.
I think Mike McCarthy was worried about his offensive line with his game plan, probably initially in this game. I wonder if the second sack that Adoga and TJ Bass were involved with, it's called a sack, but the quarterback was trying to move. They tried to run a double move on the outside with CeeDee Lamb. Marco Wilson doesn't bite. This was a weird game for Arizona. They acted like they acted like they were all pros back there playing in the secondary. It was crazy. And like the first two games, you felt like that you could take advantage of what they were doing. But I worry about this game if in fact play calling was affected by his thoughts on the offensive line. You watch the way that some of the plays he went to. He even talked about it in his press conference at the beginning of this week. That two things came from this about getting young guys more reps, and I could get into that here in a little bit. And then the second thing is throwing the ball more on first and second down once he got down the red zone. Now, I'll say this: there were some things that Arizona did to you down in the red zone that was pretty clear, pretty evident. That there were several times, Bobby, and I don't know if you saw as well as I did. There were times where it was the routes where it was 3 Cowboy receivers, 4 Arizona defenders. The Cardinals did a great job, especially in the red zone, understanding what you were trying to do when it came to throwing the football. And they did a great job of covering the routes, playing the routes, being in position. The Cowboys hit them on that little screen. That was a touchdown. It was a really nice call, really nice design. But other than that,
good job from Cooks blocking in front.
Yeah,
good job from Dowdle.
Yeah, and also I think Ferguson was also involved in that play as well up front. They tried to run the one-man screen, which they did against the Jets. Instead of the tight ends being downfield, they used receivers. They tried to get some positive yards on that. The red zone stuff is a concern. And the red zone stuff's a concern because of, and I'm not asking Mike McCarthy to try and trick him when it comes to his red zone calls. We talk about creativity, but creativity has to have some success to it. And it has to be a well thought out way of success. And I mean that in a way that when you run CeeDee Lamb on an option down there, then you have to be able to – you might fool one guy, but you're not going to fool 2 guys. Might – and 2 guys unblocked, it's a negative play. There was an opportunity where Dak Prescott, there was a read option where if he pulls the ball from Pollard and he just runs off left edge – down there, he either gets to the 1 or he actually scores. It's the red zone stuff for the Cowboys. Last week it was a Tyron Smith missed block. It was a Tyron Smith holding penalty. There were things that just this week it was, I just don't feel like that Dak Prescott. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm rambling around here. I'm really not trying to ramble.
You're good.
There's so many things just popping in my head about watching this game and what you say, well, what stood out? And it's hard because I didn't expect them to have this much trouble with. Now, I knew that defensively there were some things that Arizona was capable of. Arizona played a really well game on defense, I think, and they played really well on offense too. But I think we're starting to learn there's some things that Dak Prescott will struggle with, and I'm not trying to bash Dak here. I'm just trying to say the balls that are like the fades, the fade passes, throw the ball up, let ball being short. There's a couple of times there, whether it was the one that went to Lamb late, and you could say there was pass interference. We still haven't got an explanation why the flag was picked up on Gallup. We still haven't got an explanation for that one. And, maybe the league will say something, but they haven't as we broadcast here today. Ball's got to be higher. Ball's got to be further out. Ball's got to be, the pass that went to Cooks early in the game. Just nice job by Clark kind of forcing him out. But if you put the ball up maybe a little bit out in front, maybe you make the play there. There's some things that they've just fundamentally just really aren't good at right now. And, the passing down there, the separation from the receivers, it's not so much that you miss Ezekiel Elliott, because you could get that, in my opinion, you could get that with Rico Dowdle if you want to run it that way. You could get that with Hunter Lipke. I think Hunter Lipke has shown me that he might not be the best blocker right now, but he's capable of being a tough runner. He's capable of catching the football. He's capable of 3rd and 1 getting 9 yards in that situation. Yeah. He's capable of doing that. So these are all things that could be positives. But, the way that they executed, the way that Mike called some things, you can understand why they're having some of the issues that they're having with the red zone efficiency. And in this game, it was really, really evident. And to be honest with you, Bobby, I think it cost them the game. I think their red zone efficiency cost them a shot to win this football game. They just weren't good enough. And if it continues to be like this, then they're going to be in some trouble. They're going to be in some trouble.
Yeah, I mean, look, you are 6 of 15 in the red zone to this point, 3 for 11 in the last few weeks. And there's a troubling aspect to me about how they're specifically working the passing game in the red zone.
There's no separation at all down there. There's the route combinations. Bobby, and I talked a long time. I'm sorry, I'll let you talk.
No, you're good. You're good.
But when you watch, in Oxnard, we were all loving the fact that down there were picks, there were rub routes. On the 4th down play that they missed, the first one, they tried to do a rub and they couldn't mesh it. They couldn't, and how many times have we watched teams in the NFL or in college football and they're running these picks and rubs and it just naturally looks bump, 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 and guys are, free and it's an easy throw that Dak can make. We just haven't seen that. We didn't see that at all in the Arizona game. There was nothing. There was just that, to me, that one time where they got Cooks inside, but they couldn't get the mesh to where it would give them any space down there. So it's an issue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, you're good. Look, there, and we referenced this a little bit in our immediate reaction the other day. This team's missing Dalton Schultz in the red zone.
It's evident. It really, really is. Yeah. Or somebody that knows how to get open and get space down there. They're missing the element of somebody finding space in order for Dak Prescott to make a pretty simple throw.
Here, this is what's troubling to me. We're 3 weeks in the season. I understand there were 2 blowouts involved and whatever else you want to say, that's fine. It's inexcusable to me that CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup combined have 2 fewer targets in the red zone than Jake Ferguson. Yeah. That's bad. It's inexcusable to me that Cooks, Gallup, and Lamb have 0 catches in the red zone through 3 weeks. And you're talking about there have been 25 dropbacks in the red zone, no catches for your 3 receivers. That's bad. Now, here's my question for you. Specifically, Lamb. Lamb is supposed to be your guy. That's supposed to be your number one guy.
Lamb had bad body language in that game the other day. And I'm not trying to be a body language expert guy, but there was something not right with him in that football.
He was frustrated.
Yeah,
he was very frustrated.
I think so.
And my thing is, when you have 2 targets, no catches for Lamb in the red zone in 25 dropbacks, is that more on who do you think needs to take the most ownership of that? Lamb, Prescott, or McCarthy?
Mike does. Because as the play caller, him and Brian Schottenheimer are responsible for implementing the game plan, which is, okay, this is how we're going to get targets, or this is how we're going to get separation down there.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for Brandon Cooks. I know Brandon Cooks missed a game, but I've been waiting for him to, for them to get him going. And nice to see him get Gallup going, but Gallup had a nice game. Kind of figured that Gallup against the secondary probably would have a pretty good game.
Gallup played well, yeah.
He sure did, but it just was a bad vibe watching Lamb play. But to your question, if he had to power rank where the responsibility falls, McCarthy's 1, receivers 2, Prescott 3. That's how I would power rank. Receivers have got to find a way to get separation down there, but there also could be what you just don't have a lot of area. I don't mean to be Captain Obvious down there, but you have to come up with ways of getting routes quick, getting into routes quickly.
How much of that is Mike in general then with this scheme that as the field tightens up, you're going to get naturally more congested areas for those quick hit 3-step drop throws, and that there's got to be more creative design. It feels like Mike is running the same offense between the 20s as he's running in the red zone.
See, the creativity to me is bunch, scatter, picks, drags, lose guys in, the play that Wilson for Arizona, the 69-yard, that play was set up. They felt like that they could probably lose him in a tight split and lose him up the field. They did.
Everybody.
They lost everybody, whether it was Lewis. Everybody was playing man, and Lewis passes off and Hooker. I'm not sure about that. I don't think anybody will tell you. Maybe they'll tell you on the golf course next summer what really happened there. But right now, they're not going to tell you. But it is about creating the whole thing going into the season, and it's week 3. The whole thing going into the season was they are going to create space and separation for Dak Prescott. And the question was, if the offense is going to have success, it was going to not the question, but the comment was, if the offense was going to have success, Dak Prescott was going to have to be accurate throwing the football. Because they were going to create. And the one thing is, when Dak has had open receivers, we've seen him hit receivers on the run and stuff. The pass to Michael Gallup on the slant that went, was just it was pretty. It was a pretty play. We've seen last week against the Jets when CeeDee Lamb caught the ball, back shoulder, boom, kind of went up the field. That's the kind of things you need to see. But in the red zone, to your point, you wonder is the goal line package similar to what you see in the field? And you bringing that up, I think, is a very, very valid point, or a very valid question when you look at how the things go. It's
interesting, too. Out of every quarterback that started at least 3 games this season, so not including guys who have missed games, Dak Prescott is last in the NFL in intended air yards per attempt by more than a full yard. He's at 5.5. The next closest is Josh Dobbs at 6.7. That's 3 yards below his career average, 4 yards below his career high. When you look at, he threw 40 passes on Sunday, Brian, 5 of them went past 10 yards in the air. So we're talking about everything underneath, everything quick. I think your quarterback is starting to feel handcuffed by this scheme. I think your quarterback feels like he can do more.
Yeah, but man, I
don't say that as any sort of
no, you're not. I know.
I think just as a competitor, when you hear him talk after the game, it sounds like a guy who's like, I could be doing more to help this. Like, you do not have to treat me with kid gloves here. I think there's an overcorrection. This is the analogy I drew talking to somebody in the media today. The interceptions last year were an unfortunate outlier. They started hydroplaning on the highway, and instead of just letting off the gas, McCarthy slammed on the brakes, overcorrected, and now they're in a tailspin. And I think the passing game, I understand some people are going to say that's an exaggeration, but efficiency-wise, the passing game is moving at an unsustainable pace to keep up with big-time competitors. And so to me, I think it's just what you're seeing right now is an overcorrection, and I don't know that they're going to change it up.
I learned something today from Derek Eagleton, and I wish I completely wrote everything down that he said when we were on the Cowboys break today. He was saying that the success last year of the deep passing game, where Dak's ratings right and left were well over 100 on both sides this time last year. But, they've thrown the same amount of deep passes or deep routes through the first 3 games as we saw with the first 3 last year. But what's different is there's been more of the behind the line and then in that 0 to 9 range, Yeah. And to your point, they're 0-2 throwing the ball in the middle of the field between the hashes. So where was Dak Prescott's issues last year? And not all of them were his issues. CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, the interceptions, where they happen in the middle of the field. Yeah. So we're not seeing it. You got the same number of shots going down the field. You just have more passes that are behind the line or in that 0 to 9 range than the intermediate passes that are 10 to 19.
Well, and it's interesting in terms of passes thrown. This is just from NFL game stats and information. Passes thrown short right, so that's under 15. That's under 16 yards. Passes thrown short right. The Cowboys are number 1 in the NFL in attempts, 53 of them. Passes thrown deep right.
Yeah.
So clearly they like the throws to the right side there. Passes thrown deep right, they are 3rd to last in the NFL with 3. And that's anything over 16 yards. And look, this is we'll dive in again some more here into some of the deep pass and stuff. It's a good time to remind you guys that this is the Love the Star podcast. You can find the Love the Star podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brian, when we look at the deep passing game, specifically in this game, I know that Mike McCarthy talked afterwards about too high shell and playing safeties back. And I had mentioned I thought the safeties were playing a little more than they had on tape. They were playing deeper. I specifically, Brian, I don't know if you remember it. I mentioned it before you got a chance to watch the tape. I don't know if you saw it. The first play of the second drive, they wanted to go deep to Cooks. Yeah. I think he wanted to go deep to Cooks, and the safety rolled, and they took it away. But on the first drive, you saw it and went, they can take a shot if they want. They tried coming out. It wasn't there. He had to check down underneath. But here's the thing is that when they wanted to take shots, they succeeded down the field. And so I felt like it didn't matter what scheme they were playing. I don't think you can throw your hands up and say, well, it is what it is. We're not going to be able to really push anything down the field because of the scheme, because I think you saw they had bad eye discipline. They were a secondary that had bad communication between the corners and the safeties. I think they were still vulnerable regardless of being prepared to play against it. And the Cowboys just didn't take advantage of it enough. What did you see on tape in terms of, do you think the Cowboys could have effectively taken more shots down the field against Arizona than they did?
Well, what I was worried about, Bobby, is when McCarthy in the postgame said, well, their coverage dictated that we had to take some more underneath stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you watch the tape, their safeties were playing a little bit deeper. Their safeties were playing. I mean, if you look at, and this is from Next Gen Stats.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this helps people or not, but Dak Prescott in this game, they ran 81% zone against him in this game. Now, I saw times where safety was back. I mean, they would have one safety up, one safety back, and then they would rotate it. Or one would drive and one would drop, and they tried to kind of disguise some things. Against zone coverage, Dak was 22 of 32 for 192 yards. Okay? When they played man against him, which was right around 16% of the time, 16.7 was the number. He was 3 of 7 for 57 yards. It was 1 touchdown, 1 interception is what he had. So, to me, that's kind of one of those things where, to me, when Dak is playing against man, he's usually pretty good. It's usually pretty good, and it just wasn't what it just wasn't what it needed to, it just wasn't what it needed to be, from him, because he usually feasts when people play man against him, they're usually bringing pressure, but in this case, that just wasn't the case at all. I mean, if you want to do it, and they break it down even further, in the third quarter, 60% zone, 30% man. Okay, he was 5 of 6 against the zone, 1 and 3 against the man coverage. Get to the fourth quarter here. They played 54% zone against him. He was 5 of 6. When they played man in the fourth, he was 36%. He was 1 of 4. And the one pass was the 32-yard pass. That was that to Lamb?
That was Lamb.
Yeah. So it's kind of strange for him in this game because he, like I said, he usually tears man coverage up because that means they're blitzing and stuff like that. But what's funny about this game, even with a compromised offensive line, how much did Arizona really blitz? They were more interested in playing Dak playing Dak straight up because they probably feared that they were going to have problems on the outside, with coverage.
Yeah, and look, I think that my thing is Cottrell Clark is always in position and he doesn't finish plays.
Yeah.
Marco Wilson is a guy who gambles and misses. The communication of passing a safety or passing a guy off to a safety has not always been there for the Cardinals. So to me, it's even when it looks like it's covered, I feel like if you take the shots, it's not always going to play out that way.
Yeah.
And that to me was the biggest thing, was just take the shots. Trust your quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
Stop handling your quarterback with kid gloves.
Yeah, I don't think McCarthy was. I don't think McCarthy was confident in his offensive line.
Now that's true. And look, I think Adoga.
I think that Mike McCarthy's game plan went out the window Saturday night, sitting in a hotel room in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where I think his game plan really went out the window. Bobby, if I could just follow back up. Remember, we were talking about blitzing. Usually, when Dak has to face blitz, again, here I'm playing with numbers. I don't mean to give people tired head, but
no, it's good. It's good info.
No blitz. He saw that 78% of the time. He was 21 of 32 for 235. When he faced the blitz, it was 21.4. He was 4 of 8 for 14 yards. That's very unlike Dak right there.
Yeah,
very unlike Dak. But it just goes to show you that Arizona they were terrified. But it's funny with the compromised offensive line, McCarthy should have been more aggressive because it's showing that Arizona didn't blitz. You're worried about compromised offensive line, young guys playing blitz, and the line not being able to handle it. Arizona's plan's like, no, we're not going to blitz in this game. We're going to make you, but Dak was good enough against the no blitz. But to your point, does that mean did you take enough shots? I promise you, and this is like the last thought I'll have about it, Mike McCarthy's game plan, I believe, changed, like I say, that Saturday night when they got to Arizona, when you guys got to Arizona and he knew that Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and Tyler Biotish were not going to play. That's where I think that his game plan changed. And to your point, it might have hampered his thinking about Dak, and Dak struggling with the way this offense is currently being run right now.
Before we touch on some of the defense here as we wrap up, before we get to the mailbag, one last question on the passing game.
Yeah.
How deep into the season do we get before we just say this is the offense and that they're not going to take shots down the field? Because I felt like,
well, see, I worry McCarthy's always going to use the excuse that coverage dictated we had to do this.
Max protect it and take a shot.
Well, no, and you're absolutely right. But this is my worry. And Aisha Morrison asked a really good question in the press conference about, in the West Coast offense, the vertical principles that you have. And she's absolutely right. At some point in time, you can't sit there and just continually throw the ball underneath, behind the line, 0 to 9. You can't just constantly do that. Teams they're going to make you drive the ball. And then what happens when the Cowboys, when they drive the ball? Holding, motion, something, a drop, third down. There's something always, when teams make you drive the ball like that, they're banking on something, where are the explosive plays? Arizona won this game because of explosive plays. Dallas's inability in the red zone killed them, but Arizona's ability to occur or to get explosive plays was really the difference in this game. Was completely the difference in this game. You know?
And I don't know, what is it going to take for you're right. Do you think it's just a built-in excuse for him?
I do. And Mike is the problem that Mike's up against. There was an era where you could say too high shell, single high, we couldn't do what we needed to do. Now people break this down, in media. Now we are able to get the all 22 and say, well, Mike, they really weren't. It wasn't a lot of cover 2 in this game. There was some single high stuff, but how could you not win on the outside? I'm watching the Arizona games, the first 2 games, and I'm watching Jalen Hyatt just run right through the Arizona defense and make a huge play with no problem. And I'm thinking, and we've seen the Giants how inept they are on offense. We look just as inept on offense as the Giants did against us. And I say us being the Cowboys. It just wasn't. Now, running the football was fine, but you never could get in a lead where you could just run the ball and be fine. But I worry that Mike McCarthy is always, his excuse is going to be, well, coverage dictated it today. He'd stand up there and tell us, well, too high. 2 high guys playing, single high guy playing, but Mike, hey, we watched the tape, sir. We're going to see,
He told us what the offense was going to be when he was at Combine. I'll read the quote again. I don't care how much he says, I think it was a little taken out of context. This is what he said. I've been where Kellen's been. Kellen wants to light the scoreboard up. I want to run the damn ball so I can rest my defense. I think when you're a coordinator, but you're in charge of the offense. Being a head coach and being a play caller, you're a little more in tune. I don't desire to be the number 1 offense in the league. I want to be the number 1 team in the league with the number of wins in the championship. And if we got to give up some production and take care of the ball better to get that, then that's what we'll do. This is the offense to me. And I think it doesn't matter what the game. I think it matters who's out, who you're up against. This is what they're going to run. And if this is what they're going to run, they are going to have the same ending that they've had for 27 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really funny on Next Gen Stats. We were talking about the Malik Hooker and Jordan Lewis play. Yep. They when you start to talk about coverage by the nearest defender, they put the 69-yard pass on Malik Hooker.
That's not nice.
I know, but it's by the Cowboys' nearest defender. So if you look in the game, like Deron Bland, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 26-yard, quarterback rating of a 118. Gilmore, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 25 yards, a touchdown, 109 rating. Curse was 4 for 4 on targets and receptions. in this game.
Let's break down the defense a little bit just here before we go to the mailbag.
Sure.
What happened with the run defense? Was this a case of bad run fits, bad reads? I'll tell you the guy that I thought had a really bad day, and I mentioned this in the instant reaction. The guy there were a lot of guys that had bad days, but the guy that stood out to me that I consistently was like, why are you not in position was Marquise Bell. I thought Marquise Bell had a rough day.
I think Marquise Bell got caught. There was one time on the long run by Rondell Moore. The defensive line, it was Golston and Hankins were playing the 1 and the 3, the inside techniques. And right before this, I mean, they're literally standing up and then moving to their right in order to kind of like, okay, we need to shift. As they're moving, standing there, getting ready, the ball snapped. And now all of a sudden blockers are on them. You know, we talked about the pin and pulls and stuff like that. All of a sudden the ball's being handed off blockers. And Will Hernandez is on Bell, like Bell is like trying to move, and Hernandez, the guard, is on him. And they've got Sam Williams is wide. He's up the field.
Williams got way upfield.
Way upfield wide.
Had a clean run on Bell.
Yeah, and Bell could not get off the block. I mean, he was absolutely plastered on that particular play. So he really didn't have the opportunity to make anything happen there. It was very, very difficult for him to get off the block. So that was a problem. That was I just think overall the linebackers, when you look at
Parsons was not great in run support in this game.
No.
Parsons looked a little confused at times.
Well, I mean, there were times when, like on a third down play, he's looking inside. You could tell he's trying to yell at Van Der Esch, but he gets a rush, and it ends up being Dobbs drops back, it hits somebody on, hits, I forgot who he hit, but he gets a first down, but you got Micah Parsons like palms up, like, okay, what do we got going here, bro? What do we?
Van Der Esch was trying. Yeah, he was looking at Van Der Esch.
And there was a lot of communication problems in this football game.
Does that fall on players or Quinn?
I think, to me, with the one thing that Van Der Esch is generally pretty good at is communicating with everybody. And I wonder if it's a situation where calls got in late and now but with the head thing, the communication, it should flow pretty well. But they were a little bit on the run. The Arizona Cardinals had them on their heels the way that they played that football game last week. Just like say the 40 we talked about this. Arizona is going to formation you. They're going to scheme you. They're going to move guys. They're going to put They're going to put wide receivers in the backfield. We talked about all these things.
Yeah.
We talked about all these things. For the first half of that football game, the Cowboys on defense weren't ready to play. They just weren't. Second half they kind of got everything together until the 69-yard pass. Arizona they dialed up a nice play. They schemed it. They got it open. They put the safety in a bad spot. And they put they put Jordan Lewis in a bad spot.
We get asked about it quite a bit, so I always like to do a recap whenever you've gotten a chance to watch the film. Obviously didn't play a ton, but how did you feel like Mozzie Smith played in this?
Yeah,
game?
Mozzie, it's really, he got the opportunity. There were 8 run snaps that he got, and he had a tackle on one on. So in the total number of plays that he played, there were 8 where he, that's really his area of what he needs to do. So
he's inconsistent to me, but I think he's flashing.
Yeah, but the thing about it was he was much better in this game, and he's gotten better at this. I'm not saying this to blow smoke up people's butts about it, but the thing that he was better in this game was getting off the football. Better. He's getting better at that. He's kind of understanding that he can't be the last guy off the ball. He's got to be the first or the second guy off the ball, especially with his nose right there on the ball. He's got to get up the field. But they did not play him a lot of snaps. But the 8 running snaps that he faced, he did have a tackle. He had a tackle.
Yeah, and I think if it was on that play, I can't remember if he got the tackle but there was one I remember he penetrated, blew the play up. There
right.
I don't know if he got the tackle on that one or if he just helped blow it up. But I think he's getting. I feel better about Mozzie right now than I have about whenever somebody throws out the Taco Charlton or the Tristan Hill name. I feel better about Mozzie right now 3 weeks in than I felt about those guys. Well, even by the end of their rookie seasons.
This is maybe this is a little misleading, but if you look at the number, and this is what's alarming about the way the Cowboys played the other day, Bob. And again, I'm just having fun with next gen stats. I've just got to be a member of this, and it's incredible. I'm not a nerdy number guy, but okay, Hankins was on the field for 20 run snaps, 4 tackles. Average yards per play on the run snaps were 7.5 yards. Osa Odighizuwa, 6.7 when he was on the field, yards per snap. These are about to be some really bad numbers. Dorrance Armstrong, 7.5. DeMarcus Lawrence, 5.8. Chauncey Golston, 7.5. Neville Gallimore, 7.6. Mozzie Smith, 7.1. Dante Fowler, 8.2. Sam Williams, 16. Sam Williams was on the field for 3 run snaps. I wonder if it was after the touchdown they said, "Listen, we can't do this anymore." Yeah. But those were the yards. Those were yards per play in the running game when that was going on. There was nobody. The only one that had a below 6 on the yards per play or yards per run rush was Tank. Everybody else was 7.5, 7.6, 7.1, or 8.2, or 16. That's just a bad day at the office right there. That's a really bad day at the office.
You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. A lot of sad questions still, even a few days later. And we'll get into Patriots preview the rest of this week, but we still need to do an autopsy here, even though we had the instant reaction after the game. First question here from Mike Hill. What can be done to improve the run defense? Should they play more base on early downs or load up the box with Wilson and Curse? What are your thoughts there, Brian?
Well, the biggest problem that I saw was on their run fits. They have enough bodies, but the problem is if you are responsible for a gap and you overrun that gap trying to get to the ball, if you're Donovan Wilson or Curse or Van Der Esch, these guys that, are kind of a cleanup guys, the finish up guys, if you overrun your gap when the ball's snapped, and you're out of position, there were a couple times they cut the ball back really nicely because you were so adamant, so anxious to get, front side instead of playing your scheme position. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I know all of Dan Quinn's scheme fits and stuff. But I do know that if you have 3 guys on one side of the ball all there and the ball cuts back and it's in there's 3 guys standing in the A-B gap right next to the center, right next between the guard and the tackle. If there are 3 guys there and there's not somebody on the other side of the center in the backside A and they cut the ball back, that's a problem. That is a problem. So to me, they have got to be better on their run fits and like the run that Dobbs had. I mean, Parsons gets caught in no man's land. He's usually Parsons, like when Dobbs pulled. Usually Parsons is kind of like that guy. If he's on top of you, he got caught once again, quarterback or running back. He got caught in between no man's land. Okay, now Dobbs pulls and he's running. On the outside, you got everybody trying to chase down inside. Everybody's going down inside. But you got Wilson and Kearse on the outside, and the two tight ends, Jeff Swaim and Zach Ertz, are out there blocking. But what happens is, hook them. But what happens is Wilson goes so far inside so fast that instead of like the two tight ends blocking on each of the safeties, they just double Kearse. And then they come off because Wilson's trying to react back to the outside. And they just they bounce off each other. And then next thing you know, tight ends on Kearse, tight ends on Wilson, and ball is now spilling to the sidelines. You know, you've got to play your scheme. You've got to do your responsibility. This isn't a time for hero ball. And I'm sure Dan Quinn said that all week. Yeah, I hope I answered the question. I don't know. I just know watching the tape, the second half, their run fits were much better. They were. Yeah. It was more in line to how they needed to play.
Yeah, I think that they looked a little unprepared. In the first
how could you be unprepared?
Game.
I mean, you and I are watching the tape leading up to the game.
You know what?
And we're talking about RPOs, and it's their. And I mean, I remember I said it on so many platforms. It was RPOs, and it's one of their best plays, and you got to be ready for it. And you got to be ready for them trying to make Micah Parsons freeze. And how could you not be ready for that? That's my question. How could you not be ready for that?
I'll say this:
I'm just a slapdick scout sitting here, doing radio with you.
Were they emotionally unprepared? Is my thing. Is that I hate to give excuses like this. I think that Trayvon Diggs injury devastated that defense this week. I think they were distracted a little bit.
I think they saw an 0-2 football team.
Overlooked them.
And they got beat by the Giants and gave up points and all that. Yeah, I do. At least for a half. Yeah. Defensively for a half, yes.
Got punched in the mouth a little bit.
And then you had the big time breakdown. The 69-yard pass was a backbreaker. That was a backbreaker play because you're playing pretty well at that point. Yeah. But it was, the whole thing, 44-yard run, 45-yard run, 20 yards run, 69-yard. How many explosives did they give up in this game?
Yeah, the three longest plays in the game were all the Cardinals. And so that tells you right there. Question here from John. The one position either of you would trade for at the deadline, offensive line, cornerback, or tight end / wide receiver. I personally would love some offensive line depth. I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to trade that to you, though.
I'm surprised that they didn't, and you're right about that. I'm surprised that they went with Adoga at left tackle. I'm surprised. Yeah. I'm surprised.
Even with Tyler Smith not playing it during the week.
Yes. Because what happened last year when Tyler Smith was a rookie? Guard. Oh, wait. Tyron Smith rips his hamstring. Okay. Hey, rookie guy, go play left tackle at almost a Pro Bowl level. All rookie team level. To me, the one thing Adoga showed me was, hey, he's a capable guard. He's capable of that. I mean, that's a comfortable spot for him. And Tyler Smith's a young guy playing tackle. You know what? You switched him around. If you were worried about messing him up, you're past that. You could, if he survived last year the way he did, thinking he was a guard all year, and then next thing you know, he's playing left tackle, lining up opening day on a 13-win football team. Come on, man. Seriously, yeah. I mean, to me, Tyler Smith, Adoga, Hoffman wasn't terrible.
Hoffman was pretty good, I thought, pass protected.
Yes.
And look,
and they ran the ball. They ran the ball.
If you want some positive, I don't know about you, Brian. I haven't had a chance to hear you break him down specifically yet, so I don't know how you felt about it. I thought Tyler Smith was great on Sunday. I thought that was one of the most encouraging things I saw was Tyler Smith looks like he's ready to take another step up this year.
Yes. These offensive linemen, you're going to have to play 65 plays. Grade them all 65 plays. There's going to be 2 or 3 plays where they're a bag of ass. There's going to be those 2 or 3 plays where you're like, oh, geez. But what you don't want to have happen is Chaz Green. You don't want a Chaz Green situation. But to me, that's why I'm here talking with you, Bobby. That's why we have an award-winning podcast, because we're sitting here trying to hash things out, and they're a lot smarter than we are. They're a lot smarter than we are. Last time I sat in that chair was 2005. Trust me, if I was on this team now, I would have said, why don't we kick Tyler Smith outside, man? We did it last year. Well, we don't want to mess up his, he'd been working all week at guard. Hell, guys, he worked all year at guard until Tyron Smith got hurt and we kicked him to left tackle. How did he play then? Let's think about this. Let's think about what's our best 5 and where do our best 5 play? Udoka got my respect. And the fact
he battled. He's not going to be good enough consistently.
He's not going to be consistent enough. But he could be consistent inside when it's a small area and he doesn't have to cover a lot of ground. I'm sorry. I'll get off my high horse for sure.
No. I think it's a fair question to ask. And look, I think that they need to. I think they will. If they had a full week to prepare for them thinking Tyron was out, I think Tyler would have played. But honestly, I would have put him out there even without the snaps this week because he did it last year.
He's proven he could do it. That's the thing that bothers me.
Yeah. That does it for us here on the Love the Star podcast.
2 questions.
Ezekiel, we ran out of time, man. I'm looking at that. We're going, man. So
I'm sorry, folks. If you've asked me questions on Twitter, I'll try and get to them.
We will do one of these full mailbag episodes here soon to knock that out. But man, this is a big week. Ezekiel Elliott returns to AT&T Stadium. Played a good game last week against the Jets. Actually,
80 yards. I'm about to watch him. About to watch the Patriots. I'm looking forward to
80 yards on 16 carries. And look, we'll have Patriots evaluation for you later this week.
I got to watch Zach Wilson tonight. Oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't look at it that way. Look at it as you get to watch
the Eagles. I get to watch the Eagles.
Becton.
I get to watch the Eagles play too. I get to watch the Eagles versus New England. Oh, okay.
That's what you get. Well, this will be good. We'll have a Patriots review for you later this week, and keep sending us the questions. We do appreciate you guys so much. And this is we still got several days left in the month, Brian. This is the number 1 month for podcast downloads in the history of Love of the Star already.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you
from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys. You're the absolute best. We love you all. If I could buy y'all a beer, I'd buy y'all a beer.
And one of these days, we're going to hold Brian to that. We're going to make him buy a beer for all 2 million of you that have listened over the course of the show.
It might come to that. It might really come to that. But thank you guys. We love you. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.